Welcome, everybody. My name is Melissa, and I want to welcome you to tonight's workshop on coping skills for children with ASD. This is a topic that is very close to my heart. A lot of my students really need coping skills. If your children are having difficulties with any kind of maladaptive behavior, with any kind of anxiety, with any kind of social anxiety or generalized anxiety, behavior issues, frustration issues, coping skills are extremely useful. And the coping skills that we teach the kids, guess what? They work for us too. So it helps keep us calm and focused when we're addressing those behaviors as well. So let's talk a little bit about some specific coping skills and some specific materials that we can use to teach those skills.
I remember when I got pregnant with my daughter, I felt so grateful and so blessed. And, my life up until that point had been pretty rocky. I'd had a lot of bumps and bruises along the way. And I finally thought that I was turning a corner and God was blessing me with this beautiful gift of a child. And I just, yes, finally something was going in my way. And then when she was born, she was just absolutely perfect. I had all of these dreams and expectations for her. I thought of all the things that I thought she was going to do. Yeah, good girl. Right after her first birthday, I started to notice her behavior change. She went from, saying that. She was obsessed with Dora the Explorer, Mama, Dad. She was saying it all. Good girl, say Matt. Hit all of her milestones up to that point. She walked at 1. She was eating solid. She just, she looked really good. And then I just remember her. It felt almost overnight or very quickly where her demeanor just changed. She went from this super happy baby to crying and tantruming, just frustrated all the time. And I remember saying to my mom one day during one of these tantrums, like, where did my happy baby go? But I didn't think anything past it. I think I was kind of not ready to fathom that something could be off, even though maybe the telltale signs were there. Dressed. Honey, we gotta get dressed. Gotta get dressed, honey. Come on, time to get dressed. She started to lose the words that she had gained. She wasn't saying mama anymore. She wasn't saying ma'am. She just seemed really disconnected from us. Instead of playing with her toys, she would take them, dump them all out of her toy box, and just start twisting them around her hands aimlessly with no intended purpose. Really kind of in denial about it. And then I remember one day we were in the middle of a store, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she just started screaming and yelling like somebody had slapped her. I don't even know what the problem was, and I was so mortified. I didn't even know what to do. I was so scared. I literally just left the half full cart in the store, picked her up, and just ran out of there. I never went to that store again. I just didn't even know what to think. And that was probably the first time it really kind of stung for me that maybe something is wrong. They diagnosed her. They didn't diagnose her right away. They said that she was too young for a diagnosis. I didn't even know what they meant when they said that. I was like, diagnosed with what? I just had no idea what they were talking about. And then they said, we'll come back in if you're not seeing progress. I said, okay, and a couple months later, I'm watching a speech therapist play with her on the floor. I'm not seeing any progress and felt like she was getting a little worse. And then we went for our 2-year-old wellness visit. And the doctor said that she was behind if she wasn't using 20 words with intent. And that was probably just a knife to my heart. At that point, I really couldn't deny that something was up with her anymore. So then I called the county back in, and then she was diagnosed on the spectrum. And I remember that day, and it was worst days of my life. It was the it was my darkest hour. I could easily say that. As a mother, as a woman, as just a human being, it was probably one of the hardest times I had ever gone through. And I remember just being so, I went from being so happy with God, so thankful, to being so pissed at him for doing this to her and wrecking this beautiful gift he had given me. And for a while there, I struggled. I struggled to figure out what this meant or what we were going to do or how this was going to define her. All those dreams I had for her future were just completely shattered. And I had no idea what was going to happen next. And I went from just hopeful to just complete blank when I thought about the future. One night I was thinking, I'm going to die one day, and who's going to care for her like her mother? And something about that thought just snapped me out of my depression and my anger and my fear and said, listen, we got to get to work here. I promised that when she was born, I was going to be the best mother I could be to her. And that promise, it hasn't changed. In fact, it should mean more now than ever, not less. She needs me now more than ever. And I didn't know at the time what we were capable of, but what having those changes, that mindset shift for me was going to do. But I wanted to know that at the end of every night, I could look myself in the mirror with confidence and say, you do everything you could, Michelle, to give her the best possible life. And if the answer was yes, then that was a good day. And I wanted the answer to be yes, 100%. And no matter where the cards fell, I know I could leave this earth saying I gave her everything I had, no regrets. And as I've navigated this world with her and walked away that day after having that thought, I really just grabbed the bull by the horns. I became her fiercest advocate. I'm not a special education master's degree teacher. I don't know I never had any formal training in ABA, but I knew that I was going to learn whatever I needed to learn to be really strong for her. And Juliana had lost all of her language. Okay. She was nonverbal when she was diagnosed. Show me what you want. Okay. We taught her sign language. Show me. Juliana, show me. Then she went from sign language to word approximations. Then she started to speak. Say I did it. The most restrictive preschool environment. She was in a 614, most restrictive preschool, special education preschool environment you could be. To now where she is almost 8 years old. She's in the second grade class in a gen ed school, integrated class with typical peers. She speaks beautifully now. What did you like about the troll experience? Happy. She has a personality. She has conversation skills. There's still things that we need to work on, but for the most part, her future went from black to now having possibilities. And none of that could have happened had I not kind of gotten out of my own way and really hit the ground running and started to take action for her. And I can't say that I can do that for every parent I coach, but what I can tell them is I will have them feeling like I did, looking at myself in the mirror, you looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I was everything I could be for her today. I have no regrets. And whatever happens, happens. It's really for us as parents to know we fulfilled the duty that we promised when we had these children, was to be the best versions of ourselves, to live, to raise these children. I've helped now hundreds of mothers, coach them one-on-one, to do the same things I did, to help them to be strong, to help them to craft plans where we're seeing constant progress. This is what I want to do. I want to give you the chance that Juliana's had. I want to give you every opportunity to give your child that kind of
Dear Juliana, today we want to make a day full of happiness. Thankfully, memories to begin and great times. I hope you will remember. Happy birthday, love, King.
Oh, I love that video every time we play it. It has such a happy ending. I love it. So for those of you who are new to the workshop, I just want to let you know the format. I'm going to do a presentation on coping skills, and then at the end of the presentation, I will open it for questions and for coaching. So if you do have any questions, you could either post them in the chat box, or you could just kind of hold on to them. And then if they're not answered during the presentation, you can certainly raise your hand at the end of the presentation, and I will be more than happy to get to as many questions as I can. I just wanted to let you know I'm not ignoring you. I do see you have some hands raised, but we do kind of save the questions for the end. So without further ado, let's talk about coping skills and kids with ASD. So meltdowns. Let's talk about meltdowns a little bit. There is a big difference between a meltdown and a tantrum, okay? A meltdown is not a tantrum. It's a reaction to physical or emotional stress. Children with ASD might have a meltdown in response to situations that might only be mildly challenging to a neurotypical peer or sibling who is not on the spectrum. A meltdown is an intense response to an overwhelming situation, and that leads to that person losing control of their behavior in that moment. Meltdowns are bigger, they're more emotional, they're longer lasting, and they're more difficult to manage than a typical temper tantrum. Children with ASD might be more susceptible to meltdowns than children without ASD because of their sensory sensitivities and their communication difficulties. If you're constantly finding that you're overwhelmed by what you're hearing, what you're smelling, what you're feeling, what you're looking at, if you're either hypo or hypersensitive to things in your environment, you're going to be more likely to have an overwhelming experience that might lead to a meltdown. If you can't communicate your wants and your needs to the people in your life that can make those wants and needs happen, that can fulfill those wants and needs, and you can't tell them what you want, that can lead to extreme frustration that could end up resulting in a meltdown. If you're in pain or you're sick or you're uncomfortable or you really, really don't want to do something, and again, you don't have the ability to communicate that effectively to those who can help you with that, that might make you overwhelmed enough that it results in a meltdown. Like I said, that's different than a tantrum. Let's talk about some underlying factors that can contribute to meltdowns. It could be that the child's having difficulty understanding social norms and conventions, so they don't understand what's expected of them. They don't understand the rules of the situation, and they're not picking up on the social cues to give them an idea of what's expected of them, or what's supposed to happen, or what's about to happen next in this given situation. They might have trouble following or using spoken language, whether it's a receptive difficulty or an expressive difficulty. Again, that can lead to that frustration that can result in that overwhelm that leads to a meltdown. They might have difficulty following or using nonverbal communication. So again, if they're not picking up on facial expressions, body language, gestures, tone of voice, volume, intensity, pitch, all of those social cues, they might get frustrated. They might misinterpret things. If they can't use that nonverbal communication, they might be misunderstood, and again, might get overwhelmed and result in a meltdown. They also might be unaware of other people's likely reactions to their behaviors. So a lot of times people might think, doesn't that child understand like what it looks like, or aren't they embarrassed by their behavior in the moment? If you can't understand social cues and you have difficulty taking the perspective of another person, you are not going to be able to understand how your behavior affects other people. You might understand the consequences that follow your behavior and how it affects you, but you may not understand in the moment how your behavior is going to affect the other people in the environment and how they might react to that. You might have sensory challenges that get in the way of positive behaviors, or that are just very overwhelming that you can't escape from, or you can't communicate that you need to escape from or need a break from that overwhelming sensory stimuli. I mean, just imagine walking into a room that's like really heavily smelled with like a chemical cleaner, like you walk in and all you smell is bleach or ammonia. That can be really overwhelming, and you might not be able to stay in that unventilated space for that long, right? It might give you a headache, it might make you feel uncomfortable. Kids on the spectrum that have sensitive sensory perceptual skills can get overwhelmed by things in their environment all the time. And that can, again, lead to being overwhelmed and result in a meltdown. They might not have the same level of social motivation. So again, it's not necessarily what my friend is going to think of me in that moment isn't going to matter to me more than what's upsetting me in that moment, right? Or some kids just don't have the desire for social acceptance. They're very happy being alone. They're very happy not engaging in social relationships, because when they're engaged with other people, they have to wait, they have to take their turns, they have to share attention, they have to sometimes do what the other person wants to do. They may not be able to do exactly what they want to do every minute that they would be able to do if they were alone. They might not be able to talk extensively about their preferred interest or activity, or pursue that interest or activity. They may not be able to engage in self-stimulatory behavior or ritualistic behavior when they're around other people. They might need to use vocal verbal behavior more when they're with other people, and they can be more quiet when they're by themselves. So there could be that lack of motivation to be around other people. And some kids on the spectrum just don't have the desire to be accepted by others. Again, they're more worried about what they think about the situation, not as worried about what other people might think of them in a given situation. And again, this isn't true for all individuals on the spectrum, but it is true for a lot of individuals on the spectrum. Additionally, children with autism are prone to outbursts and emotional responses because they generally have difficulty understanding social norms, nonverbal communication, and the reaction of other people to their behavior, like we were talking about. The reality is that children with autism generally have less control over their emotions than other children. And as a result, emotional outbursts are more common for those children. So let's talk about some proactive strategies that we can use to try to avoid the meltdown. So using proactive strategies, you're basically saying, like, can we avoid the meltdown happening? Can we avoid the overwhelm? Can we avoid this in some other way? So there are several things that you can do to prepare or be proactive about a meltdown. First, have a game plan. If your child is easily overwhelmed, have a game plan ready so that you and your child know what to do when anxiety strikes. right? This might involve specific coping skills, like some of the ones we're going to talk about tonight. Something like counting to 10, walking away, doing deep breathing, watching a calming video, reading a comforting book. That's just some examples, right? But whatever your specific game plan is, you have to know that game plan and you have to express it to your child. Even if you don't think your child will understand it, we can come up with some visuals to help them understand it. And through repetition, they will start to understand it. As long as you're consistent, they will figure out what's going on, okay? It's all about the consistency. So have a game plan and stick to that game plan. And if you need one game plan for in the house and one game plan for at grandma's house or at Uncle Bobby's house or Aunt Susie's house or out in the community, then have a separate game plan for that. But again, know what your game plan is and inform your child to the best of their ability to understand what the game plan is. So if it's watching a calming video, before you walk into that potentially stressful situation, you can use priming, where you remind your child, by the way, if this gets to be too much for you, you can watch your video, right? Or you can bring a book, right? And maybe as soon as you start to see your child is a little bit nervous, you can say, here, honey, you want to look at your book? Let's look at this book together and it'll help you calm down. So you can tell them that in advance, and then in the moment, you can help them through it, right? Guide them through it, maybe offer them the book or suggest that they walk away or say, let's go count to 10 together, right? But you want to know what the game plan is, and you want to inform your kids what the game plan is going to be. You could also get some sensory toys. Also, you can buy them. They're all over the place. But you can also get like soft squeezy balls. You can get like hobby clay. They also have all kinds of like magnetic clay and slime clay and kinesthetic sand and all this kind of cool textural stuff. Fidget toys, they have about a cajillion different fidget toys. They also have fidget toys as apps, and they have what's called a haptic response, HAPTIC, a haptic response, which means when you press the fidget spinner on the phone, you can actually feel as if the phone was spinning or popping bubbles. It feels like the bubble is popping while you're holding the phone, like it vibrates on that spot on the screen. So there's a lot of different like stimmy stuff out there that you can use. Anything that provides a tactile or a sensory outlet, depending on what your child's preferences are. You can also get chewy tops for pencils and pens. For some kids, they might chew on their shirt, they might bite themselves, they might chew their hair, they might chew on strings or other items of clothing, they might mouth items, they might put non-edible items in their mouth. So you can give them appropriate things that they can put in their mouth, right? So for some kids on the spectrum, when they're really stressed out, being allowed to chew on something can be enough to as an outlet for that stressful episode. So it can be very helpful for that time that your child is stressed, so it doesn't become a meltdown. Timing is everything. You can get an indoor or outdoor swing or trampoline, and these are great ways for kids with autism to get that sensory input that can be needed to self-regulate. There are small indoor versions that are often available through toy stores. You don't have to buy a special sensory swing, but you can. You can go online and search for occupational therapy catalogs or adaptive physical toys, and you will get a variety of adaptive things and toys and stimmy stuff and sensory things and swings and trampolines and all kinds of sensory toys, all those cool things that you see at the occupational therapy office. there are catalogs where they buy that stuff too. So you can get access to those catalogs and buy what you need. Or you can go to the toy store and get similar, like a pogo stick or a jump rope or a bouncy ball, one of those big like yoga balls that the kids can sit and bounce on. They've got the little small round trampolines for people's homes, or you can get a big one outside with the net around it. Whatever works for you, your household, your budget, your space, and your child's preferred sensory input. Some kids love to be swung on swings. Some kids love to jump on trampolines. Other kids, you can't get them out of a pool. So, and again, you don't necessarily have to go all deep indoor in-ground pool or a big huge above ground pool. Like they sell these little like blow up pools that are like self-rising for about $100. So as long as you have, you know, 4 feet of space out in your yard, you can fill this, and it's quick filling and it's quick warming. And your kids could love it if they love water and those kind of activities. So again, it doesn't have to be a huge expense or a huge taker of space. You can get a weighted vest or a weighted blanket. I have my own weighted blanket and I love it because it helps me when I'm having anxiety or stress. And for some kids, these heavy items provide a feeling of security. It gives that deep pressure, and it can make it easier to manage the sensory sensitivity that they might have when they're out in the community, when they're at school, when they're at home, in other situations, whenever they're feeling sensory overwhelm. The weighted vest and weighted blankets can be really, really helpful. And I know, because like I said, I use a weighted blanket myself, and it is really, really helpful. You can explore guided meditation techniques. Not all kids with autism are able to practice meditation, but a lot of them can benefit from either meditating or learning mindfulness and guided breathing techniques. And they're helpful for you too. If your child is having difficulty with coping skills and your child is having difficulty with their behavior, I would probably guess that you're probably stressed out too as their caregiver. So these kind of techniques can be helpful for everybody. And because kids learn what they see rather than what you tell them, especially kids on the spectrum are visual and they're experiential, right? So they are more likely to learn from what they experience and what they see than from what you tell them or what you explain to them. So if they see that you're using mindfulness or you're using meditation or you're using breathing techniques, or you're using calming putty or whatever it might be, when you start to get anxious, that provides that model of this is what we do when we're anxious, and this is how we calm down. But if when you get anxious and you get overwhelmed, you yell or you scream or you get moody or you get less talkative or you get more frustrated or you bang things and slam doors, then that's what your child is going to learn is the typical response to stress and anxiety. So what your kid is living is what they're going to learn, and what they see you doing is going to have a huge impact on what they learn how to handle stress and how to respond to that. So if you're trying to teach your child not to yell, not to have a meltdown, not to have a tantrum when they're getting frustrated, then you also can't yell or have a meltdown or have a tantrum when you get frustrated with them, with your partner, with your laptop, with other drivers on the road, with the Netflix when it doesn't work and you can't get your password to work and you got to go re-sign in and yada, yada, yada. Okay. So you have to model this stuff too. So all of these techniques are good for you to learn for yourself and to model for your child and for you to be able to teach your child. And once you learn how to do it yourself, it's a little easier to teach someone else how to do it as well. Or you can get a family pet. For some kids, pets have a calming effect on some kids with autism. Some kids with autism rely on pets as service pets or emotional support pets. But again, it's specific to your child, because for some kids, when they have a meltdown, they might hurt a family pet. So again, it's individual needs, but it is definitely an option that can be really helpful. For some kids that don't necessarily bond to other people, they bond tremendously with the family dog or the family cat, but usually the family dog. I've seen a lot of amazing bonding for kids on the spectrum. For nonverbal kids, they've learned that can't pick up cues from their people, have learned to pick up cues from their family pet, and have learned to communicate better, and have learned to express themselves better, and have learned to take the perspective of somebody else, like have learned empathy through their affection for their family pet. So for some kids, it's an awesome idea. Other kids might have to build up to it. Okay, so let's talk about proactive strategies in terms of teaching coping skills, because avoiding, managing, or planning for meltdowns can only go so far. No matter how proactive you are, the meltdown is going to happen eventually. Like, it's not enough to just be proactive, and it's not enough to just kind of avoid or try and set up the environment to make it least likely that your child's going to experience a meltdown. Because if you just remove all of the triggers, and I've met parents that really want to do this to help their child, they want to remove all the triggers from their environment. So their child, when they're at home, never has to experience those triggers, so they're less likely to have a meltdown. The problem with that is, in the real world, they're going to experience those triggers. Isn't it better for those kids to learn how to calm their own emotions in a safe, secure, understanding environment where you have more control and access to reinforcers and calming tools and strategies and time and patience and understanding, right? So proactive strategies are great and you should use them, but you shouldn't be working harder to avoid the meltdowns than you are working to teach your child how to calm themselves and how to self-soothe. Because proactive strategies are great, but the best solution is to teach the child how to calm their own emotions. A child with ASD can learn to calm themselves by being taught what to do when anxiety strikes or in response to a trigger to their anxiety. You need to provide the child with tools to self-soothe and to teach those coping skills. Now, it's recommended to teach coping skills while your child is calm. You don't want to be teaching them during a meltdown. You want to pick a time when the child is calm and start practicing those skills then. Because once your child can use the coping skills while they're calm, it's much more likely they'll be successful using them when they're in an emotionally heightened state. Like when you're upset, you're not thinking clearly. And if you're not thinking clearly, you're going to have difficulty using something that you're not really sure of yet, right? If it's new to you and you still have to think about how to do it, and now you're upset and you're not thinking clearly, you're thinking more about being upset, you're seeing red, you're not processing things appropriately, that's not the time to figure something new out, right? When you're calm and you have the ability, the calm and the time and the patience, like that's the time to start teaching the use of the skills. And then as they get more and more fluent with them, it'll be so much easier to get them to use them, and they'll be more successful using them when they are upset because they'll already be better at it, right? Same thing for you. Like when you first start learning how to use the skills on your own, you're just figuring them out. So it's better to learn and practice them when you're calm. And then when you learn how to do them, and then you start to feel yourself getting upset, you can implement them and calm yourself down as well. So let's talk a little bit about distraction skills versus coping skills, because they are two different things, both useful, but different. Coping skills help us cope with difficult emotions, thoughts, or situations. Distraction skills help distract us from those difficult emotions, thoughts, or situations in order to get through the day. Like, for example, watching your favorite TV show so that your mind focuses on the plot of the show and you're not repeating over and over again the things that are bothering you or stressing you out or that you don't necessarily want to think about in that moment. You can distract yourself. You're not dealing with the problem. You're not solving anything. You're not really coping with the anxiety per se, but you're avoiding it because you're distracting yourself with something else. And that's a valuable skill to have in some situations. Coping skills help us soothe our body in order to get through difficult emotions, thoughts, or situations. Coping skills are kind of like riding the wave of the emotion until it's a much calmer wave, right? So you're not distracting yourself from it. You're not avoiding it. You're riding it out, but you're in control of it, right? So you're learning how to get control of the response that your body typically has, right? So you're typically anxious in this situation. And when you're anxious, what happens? Your heart beats quicker, your blood pressure goes up, your breathing gets increases, your breathing rate gets faster, your heart rate speeds, you might get flushed, you might get ready to fight or flee, or you might freeze, right? So all of these are your body's reaction to these anxiety provoking triggers, and they're your child's reaction to these environmental triggers for their anxiety. Okay, so that's the typical response your body has. When you use coping skills, you are slowing down your heart rate. You're slowing down your breathing. You're lowering your blood pressure. You're making everything calmer. You're soothing yourself. You're now calming those. You're teaching your body to have a different reaction. So over time, when you see that, when you encounter that trigger, over time of encountering the trigger and calming your body, countering the trigger and calming your body, over time, you can encounter the trigger and your body no longer has that same stressed reaction. Like initially, that's why it's become a trigger, because in the past, you've experienced this situation and it's resulted in you feeling upset, anxious, unsure. Things are unpredictable. You're not happy with the situation. And over time, your child or you have learned that when I'm in this situation, bad things are going to happen. I'm not going to like it. So in response to that situation, now you don't even have to experience that actual result of that actual anxiety, that actual failure or disappointment or frustration. Now just seeing the trigger is enough to make your body feel as if you experienced that initial or those first initial experiences that made you feel that way in the first place. You don't even need to go through it anymore because you've associated this event, activity, stimulus with those feelings of anxiety. And pairing, stimulus pairing, is over time, seeing that stimulus triggers that response in your body. Coping skills is the opposite procedure of that. You're now seeing something that's making your body feel stressed, and now you're forcing your body to calm down. You see the thing that causes you stress, and then again you teach yourself to calm down. Over time, seeing that thing, you're not you don't have as much stress to calm down. So it's easier and easier and easier to calm down. And over time, seeing that thing no longer gives you that same physical reaction. So that's what coping skills can do for your child and for yourself. You might need to use both distraction skills and coping skills, either at the same time or at different times to cope, depending on your experience or your child's experience. So there are times where you're going to want to distract your child from the stimulus that's going to upset them. And then there are times where you're going to want to help your child use their coping skills. You might start off distracting them and then get them to start using your coping skills. You might get them to start using their coping skills and then be able to distract them. So it depends on the child, the situation, the trigger, the coping skill, etc. So let's talk about coping skills a little bit more. The specific coping skills that might work for your child are going to vary depending on your child's language abilities, depending on the trigger for that meltdown, your child's individual needs, the level of their frustration, the length of time that they've experienced frustration in response to the stimulus. Like, has this been going on for 2 weeks, for 2 years, for 2 decades, for how long, right? So there's a lot of factors. So depending on all of those factors together, that determines like what coping skills may or may not work for your child. I'm going to show you a variety of examples of coping strategies that you can use with your child. Once you find some coping skills that might work for your child, practice those skills with your child. Again, practice them when your child is calm. Because again, like I said before, it's hard to use a new skill that you're still learning when you're upset and you're not thinking clearly. But the more fluent you are with a skill when you're calm, the more likely you'll be using that skill when you're upset and invested in that outcome. Okay, so let's look at some examples of coping skills. You want to get your child to use the coping skills, and you want to direct your child to use the coping skills using the appropriate communication strategy for your child. So if your child uses PECs, you can provide them choices or reminders for their coping skills. So over time, when you pair the calm down icon, when you pair this calm down picture with things that help the child calm down, over time, that could be a prompt for your child to remember to use those strategies. Or it could be a way for your child to ask for help with calming down, to get some of those strategies to help you use them, to help you get them to use them, etc. As you can see, like the PECs to teach your child to count to 10, that could be the prompt to teach them to count to 10. And it can be a reminder later on that when they start to get upset, you can show them that PECs and it can kind of serve as a directive to count to 10. Or you could put it on your child's token board or on their communication board or on their AAC device as both a reminder and as a way to ask, I need to count to 10 right now. They might need help counting to 10. They may need to remove themselves from the immediate activity or environment in order to count to 10. They might need your assistance getting them started with counting to 10. They might need to count to 10 a couple times. So they might need to ask for it, or they might need a reminder to use it. You teach what behavior goes with each icon. And like I said, you can either prompt the child or they could request which skill it is that they need to use. Here are some additional visual prompts and reminders. So you can, again, depending on your child's visuals that work for your child. Here are a variety of different ones. You can use the first one. Here's one calming, and this is just an example that I used for a student where they had they could choose. So whichever coping strategy they wanted to use, they would touch that line and then we would use that strategy. And over time, it just became something that we put in the front of their book so that it was a reminder. And if they started to get upset, they could just look and they could pick any strategy they wanted to use in that moment in time. So the first one shows a visual of taking 4 deep breaths, right? So it shows the visual of the mouth to suck in and blow out, right? So again, you have to teach the visual first, teach them how to take those 4 deep breaths, and then showing them how to do it. You know, we do it once, then we do number 2, then we do number 3, and then we do number 4. So you teach this to them first, and then they can use it. You can clench their fists. And again, they can do that 4 times. And there are visuals. So I'm going to clench my fists as hard as I can. And then I'm going to open my hands and relax them as much as I can. And I'm going to do that 4 times. So again, I did it the first time. I'm going to do it the second time, etc. The third visual, self-explanatory, a visual if the child can identify their numbers. There's a visual so that they can count to 10 on their own. And again, just telling them that they did a good job, right? So praise, just seeing like you're doing a good job, hang in there, you're okay, kind of a thing. So, or a good job for using any of those 3 strategies. So whatever the child needed in that moment. And again, it's individual for your child. So you could put different visual prompts or different reminders depending on what your child actually needs. Additional visual prompts and reminders. If your child is a reader, this is another visual that I've used with some of my students, where again, it's a reminder to take 10 deep breaths, to slowly count to 10, to squeeze their hands together as hard as they can and then relax, and then they can do it again as much as they need to. Again, it gives them something sensory and it gives them something to focus on, and it gives them that pressure in that moment. And it also is like a good like little exercise workout, and it can tire you out, and that also helps with breathing. You can imagine a happy place. Again, if that's something that your child understands and can do, then that's a great reminder to give them. They can think of a happy memory. Again, maybe you have a couple of pictures that you can put on there if your child needs some actual reminders. I've had kids that I've worked with some teens that we've made collages of pictures of happy memories and put them in their room. So when they are feeling stressed, or they're feeling depressed, or they're feeling down, or they're feeling frustrated, they could go over to the collage and just look at any one of the pictures to spark a happy memory. Because again, when you're feeling down or you're feeling frustrated, sometimes it could be hard to come up with the memory of something good and something positive. So making that collage, putting it on the wall, making an album and saving it on their phone or their tablet can also be good prompts for them to, I mean, just think about when you look at a photo album or you look at an album on your phone, that feeling that you get when you look at like a picture that you're like, oh wow, I remember that day, that was really cool, that's right, this person came and we had so much fun and we went to that place and we had that awesome food and we did that thing and it was so much fun, right? So giving your child those visuals, like let them put together a little album that represents happy memories for themselves, can be really great for them to use in those moments. Not only can you push your hands together, right, but you can also pull your hands apart. So depending on what works for your child, or both, they could start by pushing their hands together and then they can work on pulling their hands apart. Again, it gives them something physical to do. Many times when we're teaching the kids to use coping strategies, like a lot of the strategies, like I said before, they're designed to slow your body down and to teach your body to have a different physiological reaction to whatever your trigger is, other than the stress and anxiety. Like I said, like taking deep breaths, slowly counting to 10. imagining a happy place. Those are all things meant to calm you so your body calms down. So you're no longer tense and anxious, but you're calm and relaxed instead, right? Sometimes we need a little catharsis. We need a little outlet, right? We need a little bit of like, oh, because we're upset in the moment. And sometimes that's all we need, right? Sometimes it's enough to go like, man, and then you move on. But sometimes you need to get that out, right? Like think about how you react in traffic. Somebody cuts you off, somebody does something stupid, right? Yelling, hitting your steering wheel, making a comment does nothing to change that person's behavior, right? Sometimes it even reinforces it because some people like to make other people angry, but it typically does nothing for their behavior. So why do we do it? We do it because it makes us feel better for a second, right? Like typical teenage boy gets upset, punches a hole in the wall, hurts his hand. You're like, did that make you feel better? And they're like, yeah, for a second. A whole second? Yeah, because again, in that moment, it was just that catharsis of just getting that like, out. And then you were able to calm down. So not recommending hitting walls or anything, but sometimes having that physical response gives your child something other to do other than hitting or hurting themselves or scratching themselves or hurting someone else or destroying property or dropping to the floor or whatever it is that they might do that's inappropriate during a meltdown. So squeezing your hands together also tightens those muscles, really tightens them, and then it relaxes them, right? When you stop. And then pulling your hands apart is just that opposite motion. And then you pull, 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 pull again, and then you relax for a second. And doing that a few times can get that catharsis, get that release out in an appropriate way. I would rather have my student pushing their hands together and then pulling their hands apart than breaking furniture or dropping books on the floor or slamming doors or hitting someone or scratching themselves, etc. Here's some examples of coping skills for visuals in both English and Spanish. So there are a lot of resources out there for Spanish-speaking families as well, for families that speak other languages. I'm sure there are other resources out there as well. But as you can see, the rainbow coping skills, again, are just visuals to remind the child what to do, or to ask for things that they need, where they could either point to whichever thing they need, or if you kind of cut those out, laminate them and Velcro them on, the child can actually take one of those things off and hand it to you and let you know what it is they need help with or need to do in that moment. So I have an example in English and the same exact example in Spanish, right? So deep breathing or respiración profunda, relaxation or relajación, time with friends, tiempo con amigos. Please forgive my pronunciation, please. A drink of water, beber agua, write it down, escribirlo, talk to someone, hablar con alguien, or go for a walk, salir a caminar. So whether you need the reminders in English or if your child speaks another language, we can get visuals in your language as well. So this was just an example of that. Again, some visuals that explain the whole process. So again, initially, we want to teach your child all of these steps, right? First, we want to teach your child to identify how they're feeling. We don't want them to go straight to meltdown. Like identifying that this is what I'm feeling in that moment is like the first step to figuring out what to do about it. So the first thing we need to teach a child how to do is to identify emotions, identify how they're feeling. Now, initially, you might have to do that by teaching them with pictures of happy, sad, angry. You might need to teach them with videos of people demonstrating those emotions so that they understand what it is. But the best way to teach them what those emotions really mean is when you see your child experiencing an emotion, label that emotion, label it for them. So they again associate this feeling that I'm having with the label for that feeling. So if you see your child is trying to do something and they're not able to do it and they're starting to get upset, you could say, wow, you look like you're getting frustrated, or that's frustrating, or just frustrating, right? Just label it for them. If you see your child starting to get upset and you see that they're sad, tell them, oh, you look sad. Are you sad? You're sad right now. So again, they know, they can remember the next time they have this experience, they know what it's called. So they can now, over time, tell you, I'm sad, before they start crying. They could tell you, I'm angry, before they start breaking things. They can tell you, I'm nervous, before they have a meltdown and elope from a non-preferred environment. They could tell you, I'm overwhelmed, before throwing non-preferred food across the room because it's too overwhelming to even smell that non-preferred food on somebody else's plate. So they can tell you, I'm tense right now, or I'm bored and I don't know what to do. So I might end up like getting mischievous and getting into trouble, right? So first, as you see your child experiencing an emotion, label it for them. When you're experiencing an emotion, label it for them so they know what it looks like, but you also need to label it when they're experiencing it so they understand this feeling is called this, okay? The next step, once they can identify how they're feeling, we want them to tell us why they're feeling that way. So I'm worried about this, right? I'm tense because I'm worried about something, right? I'm anxious because I don't like this subject. I'm frustrated because I can't think straight, right? I'm upset because I didn't like what happened. I'm fidgety because I don't understand something. I'm angry because I'm having a bad day, right? I'm annoyed because I'm feeling criticized, or I'm mad because I don't like what someone said, or I'm stressed because I didn't get what I wanted, right? I'm down because I didn't sleep well last night, right? I'm sad because I'm missing somebody, right? I'm frustrated because I want to do something else. Once your child can tell you how they're feeling and identify why they're feeling that way. Now, again, initially you need to teach this. So first you pair the emotion that your child's going through and label it as whatever emotion it happens to be based on your child's ability. You might just start with happy, sad, angry, tired, bored. You might not go angry, frustrated, and stressed, right? Those are nuances. You might start with big, just clear emotions. And then over time, if they can do more nuanced stuff, the difference between being frustrated and being annoyed, or being frustrated and being angry. So initially, you might just do, like I said, some big, easy to identify emotions. Once your child can explain to you what they're feeling, as soon as you can identify why they might be feeling that way, you want to start labeling that too. So just like you label to your child, you're sad, once they're labeling, I'm sad, you could say, oh, I see you're sad. Is it because you didn't get your way? Are you sad because your sister got to go first? Are you sad because you lost the game? Are you sad because you had to wait for your iPad to boot up, etc.? So if you understand why they're feeling the way they're feeling, express it to them. And then once you can tell them why, you can ask them why. So if you say, oh, how are you feeling? And your child goes, I'm frustrated. And you say, oh, are you frustrated because you can't get your iPad to boot up? And they say yes. Then you can say, why are you frustrated? And they can say, I'm frustrated because I can't get my iPad to boot up, right? So over time, just like they learn to identify this feeling with this label for this emotion, over time, they will start to identify the cause and effect between what I'm feeling and what just happened. Now, once your child can tell you how they're feeling and why they're feeling that way, now we can teach them that final step of what they can do about it, right? So I'm feeling angry because I didn't like what happens, so I need to take a break. I'm feeling anxious because I don't like this subject and I need to take a walk, right? I'm feeling overwhelmed because I didn't sleep well last night and I need my fidget toy. Okay. So again, you have to initially offer them things that you think might help them based on coping skills that you've been practicing with your child while calm. What things really seemed to click with them? What things really seemed to make them happy, to make them calm, to make them relax? What things can you try? And then over time, you can recommend those things to your child. So if when your child is angry, they tend to be able to use their fidget toy, but they really can't stop and do deep breathing in that moment, then if they say, I feel angry because I didn't like what happened, you could say, oh, would you like your fidget toy? And then over time, you can ask them, oh, they'll tell you, I feel angry because I didn't like what happened. And you can say, oh, what do you think might make you feel better? And then you could either present two options, like a fidget toy and a maze, right? And see what they pick. And then maybe they ask for the fidget toy. And again, over time, they'll start to learn to say, I'm anxious because I'm feeling criticized and I need to write in my journal. Or I'm feeling depressed because I'm having a bad day and I need to do some deep breathing. This is the whole process, right? Like this is our end goal, is for your child to be able to identify what they're feeling, to identify why they're feeling that way, and to be able to identify or use what they need in order to calm down. So again, initially, you're going to have to mediate this for them and provide them with those suggestions and those prompts and the visuals. But over time, your child will be able to do this more and more independently. So initially, you might have to ask them like, oh, how are you feeling right now? For them to label how they're feeling. But over time, you'll see them start to label it on their own, especially if you're reinforcing this. If you're reinforcing them for that, like, wow, you told me that you're frustrated. That's awesome. You can praise it. You can give them a token. You can give them a point. You can give them an actual tangible reward. You can give them points depending on whatever motivation system works for your child. But reinforce this. And if you reinforce these skills, you will see your child starting to use them. And again, it's always at your child's level. So if your child doesn't read these things, then we use pictures. If they use PECs, we can use PECs icons. If they need actual photographs, we can use actual photographs. We could use line drawings. We can take photographs of your child while they're feeling different emotions and put those on the I feel board, right? We could take pictures of actual things that have upset your child in the moment that they're getting upset. You can take a picture of the trigger or the triggering event and put that on the because I board. So they have some visuals there to remind them of why, oh, you feel, and a picture, point to a picture of them being angry because a picture of their sister winning a game. And what do you need to do? A picture of their fidget spinner, whatever it happens to be. So initially we mediate this, but over time, the goal is for the children to be able to use this themselves. But like I said, you have to reinforce it in order for them to do it. Here are some coping skills that can help relate the strategy that your child uses to what they're feeling. So, as you can see at the top of the page are just a circle representation, like face representation of the feelings themselves, right? So there's the blue feeling for being sad. There's the green smiley face for being happy. There is the frustrated face with the yellow circle, and there's the angry face with the red frowny face, right? So this will also give your child some visuals and some examples of things that they can do depending on how they are feeling. So again, first you have to teach your child to identify how they're feeling by labeling it for them when you see them feeling a certain way. And then you could provide a visual like this and you can say, oh, it looks like you're frustrated right now. What would you like to do? You want to count your fingers? Do you want to take some slow, deep breaths? You need to ask for help? Do you need to take a break and try again? And again, you can put as many or as few options up there for your child. Oh, it looks like you're happy. We can practice some kindness. You can practice good listening. You could do something that you really want to do right now. So again, demonstrate some things that they can do depending on what feeling they're having in the moment. Oh, you're angry. Maybe you can rest your body and your mind. We can count to 10. We can walk away. We could take some deep breaths. Oh, if you're sad, you can ask me for a hug, right? You can stretch or move your body. You can talk to someone. You can close your eyes and think of a peaceful place, or use your collage or your phone album, right? So again, this will teach your child based on what they're feeling, what coping strategies are available to them. And again, you would pick these based on what you think is going to work best for your child, based on what you guys practice while your child is calm. Remember, all of the teaching goes on while your child is calm. Here are some coping skills. If you cut this up, and if you print all of these pages out and you cut them up and bind them together, you can make my mindfulness book, which can give your child like this little book of strategies that they can use depending on what's bothering them in that moment, right? So these are my mindfulness activities that I can do anytime. You can either put it in like a little book format for your child, or you could just cut out the strategies themselves, put them on a board, put them on the wall, put them on a visual for your child in some way. So, mindful dots. You put your head on your desk, you place your finger on on a dot and count slowly from 10 to 1 with each finger in the count. So, so this is, you touch each dot and you take a deep breath. Take a deep breath in and then slowly release it and then move your finger along the dots. Upon completing the count, raise your head from the desk. So your child will put their head down, they would touch the first dot, take a deep breath. Then they would touch the next dot, take a deep breath. They would touch the next dot, take a deep breath. When they were done with all the dots, they could raise their head back up. Okay, a grounding activity, and this is a very common grounding activity that a lot of people practice for mindfulness. Describe 5 things that you see right now. Describe 4 things that you feel right now. Describe 3 things that you hear right now. Like right now, I can hear the traffic outside my window. I can hear the TV on downstairs, and I can hear my dog barking to go outside. Describe 2 things that you smell right now. Describe 1 thing that you taste right now. So again, that's taking your student's mind or your child's mind off of what's bothering them, that stimulus that's aggravating them or stressing them out in the moment, and it's making them focus on their senses in a different way. It's kind of a combination between like a distraction skill and a coping skill. Like I said, sometimes you have to use both. Lazy 8 breathing. You would place your finger on the dot in the middle, and then you trace the 8 and take a deep breath, and then you let it out. So you trace the 8, breathe in, breathe out. Trace the 8, breathe in, breathe out. So again, that gives your child something to focus on and doing deep breathing. The mindful maze. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, focusing only on the maze. Using your non-dominant hand. So if you're right-handed, you're going to use your left. Trace the path with your finger, starting in the center until you reach the end. Focus on the movement of the maze and on breathing deeply. So if your child's not really great at mazes, they can use their dominant hand. If they're good at mazes, make them use their non-dominant hand. The reason for that is it makes them focus more. It's kind of easy to do with your dominant hand, but you really have to think about what you're doing when you're doing it with your non-dominant hand. So again, both distraction and coping skill. Or you could do a body scan. This is where you take an internal scan, a mental scan of your body, starting with your toes. You move your toes back and forth. Then you move your calves back and forth and flex them up and down. Then you take a few deep breaths and notice how your chest rises and falls with each breath. Move your shoulders, shrug them up to your ears and then down again. Move your fingertips. Rotate your neck and head to the left and then turn to the right. Notice how your body feels as you move. You move your body again after you take your scan, right? How does your body feel while you're doing it? How does your body feel after you're doing it? So again, these are all visuals that you can use with your child. Again, first you have to teach them how to do each one of these, what each one of these means, and then they can utilize these when they're going to be in a stressful situation. While they're on the bus, they can utilize these coping skills because being on the bus is stressful. It's a long ride. There are other kids making noises and it could be difficult for them. So little mindfulness activities like these can be very, very helpful. We'll print them out, laminate them, give them to your child, and then put them on a key ring, punch one hole in the center, put them on a key ring. Now they're at your child's disposal. Coping skills, you want to be creative. So here's another example where we're going to have your child spell your name. Or so what I mean by that is the visual here, there is a coping strategy for each letter of the alphabet, right? So A is ask yourself what you need. B is breathe deeply and slowly. E is establish one healthy boundary. I, incorporate an I statement. K, keep in touch with the friend. V, visualize one positive moment, right? So each of these strategies, there are 26 strategies, and each coping strategy starts with one letter from each letter of the alphabet. Now, be creative. If your child's having a rough moment, you can have them spell their name and then act out each one of the coping skills in their name, right? So my name is Melissa. I would start by meditating for 2 minutes. Then I would have to establish one healthy boundary. I would have to listen to one song. I would incorporate an I statement like, I am feeling very frustrated right now. I would then need to stretch for 3 minutes. Then I would have to stretch for 3 minutes again. And then I would have to ask myself what I need. By the time I'm done utilizing all those coping strategies, chances are I'm feeling better and I'm probably distracted from what was bothering me in the first place. Now, if your child has a short name or they get used to using those same strategies over and over again, you can have them spell a word representing their favorite person, their favorite activity, their favorite superhero, their favorite character, how they're feeling right now. You're feeling angry? Let's ask yourself what you need. Let's name 3 positive things. Let's do guided meditation for 5 minutes. Let's rest for 5 minutes, and let's do yoga for 10 minutes. So again, you can spell out any word depending on what your child is interested in spelling at that moment. And then they have to follow through on the coping strategies that are associated with each of those letters. Here's another creative way of using coping skills by using your child's interests. Here, this particular child loves trains, particularly Thomas the Tank Engine. So we're going to use Thomas to help this child take 5 deep breaths. So we cut out and laminated one Thomas train and we put it right there. So we move that Thomas train with each breath. So first we do number 1, deep breath, and we put Thomas the Tank Engine there. Then we do breath number 2, we put Thomas the Tank Engine there. And we keep moving until he does 5 deep breaths. Now, just a little side note, and you can use this for any activity. If your child likes superheroes, put a superhero, have them move the Hulk across the board. If they like animals, have them put their favorite animal across the board. If they like sports, like a favorite video game, their iPhone icon, like whatever it is they like, have them move that across for each breath. Whether it's 5 breaths, 10 breaths, 20 breaths, whatever your child needs. Now, make sure your child's taking belly breaths, not chest breaths. What I mean by that is you need to be breathing from your diaphragm. So if you, I'm going to stand up a little bit, put your hand on your belly. When you take a deep breath in, your hand should go out because you're filling your diaphragm with air. And when you breathe out, you're expelling that air and your hand should go in, so your belly should go in. Belly breaths, not chest breaths, not like just breathing from up here, right? You want to breathe from down here in your belly. The reason for that is your brain responds to belly breaths by calming, reducing your heart rate, reducing your blood pressure, and making you feel calmer as a result. If you're taking too many chest breaths, that tells your brain that you might be drowning or suffocating, and it actually increases anxiety. So when you're doing deep breathing, it's important to do it the right way. So belly breaths. Teach your child how to do belly breaths, and it's helpful to actually put your hand on the belly when you're first starting to learn how to do this and practice it yourself. And then once you're good at it, it'll be easier for you to teach your child how to do that as well. Again, another way to use your child's interests. So I mentioned before, if your child's into superheroes, here's a Hulk stomp. Give your child a safe space where they can Hulk stomp their anger out. This could be a designated area where they can jump or stomp their feet when they're feeling upset. It's a physical way to release that built up energy, that catharsis, that release I was talking about earlier. A Hulk 5. You can count to Hulk 5. When children feel themselves getting upset, suggest that they count to Hulk 5 instead of just counting to 10. It adds a playful twist and makes it easier for them to remember to calm down before reacting. Or Hulk breath. Hulk breathing. Teach kids to take deep belly breaths when they start feeling angry or upset, just like Bruce Banner does to keep the Hulk calm. You can make it fun by telling them to take a big Hulk breath and then let it out slowly. Encourage them to do this a few times to feel better. And again, if it's not the Hulk, you can make it a Thor breath or a Thor 5 or a Captain America stomp or an Iron Man breath or whatever their favorite Disney princess. It's a Snow White 5. It's a Belle breath, whatever their interests are. Okay, some kids have difficulty choosing a strategy. So you can make a fortune teller. Do you remember, well, it was popular when I was a kid. You took a square piece of paper and you folded it up in such a way that you can put your 4 fingers in and you can, it looks like this little, I should have actually made one. So it actually, you fold it up. I'm going to make one right now to show you. You fold up the squares and then you turn it over and you fold them up again. And then you put your hand, I'm not making a very good square right now. Okay. So you make this fortune teller and then you put your fingers in the square holes and then you can open it and close it. And when you open it and close it, you can open up a window. I hope you guys know what I'm talking about because these were so popular when I was a kid and apparently they are making a comeback. So you take a square piece of paper, you fold it into 4 You fold it into fourths and then you unfold it so you can see where the middle of the page is. And then you fold all the corners into the middle like you're making a diamond. Okay, you fold it into the middle like you're making a diamond. Then you turn it over and you do the same thing again. You fold those four corners of your diamond over into the middle on the back of the paper. Okay. So you have this little tiny packet like this. Okay. Then you fold it up and you can now put your fingers inside the squares there, right? And then you just kind of put it in like this. And now, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, but it like opens and opens vertically and opens horizontally. It opens vertically and opens horizontally, right? So when you can put things on the outside. We used to put like colors on the outside. So if I said, if there was red, blue, yellow, and green, and I picked red, I would go RED. And then maybe on the inside of that, there might be numbers. So I might say, pick a number, and it's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we open it again, pick another number, 2, and then you open and you see what was behind 2. And it was whatever, like, oh, the person you're going to marry, the job you're going to have, how many kids you're going to have, whatever. It was like silly things when we were younger, right? So that's the fortune teller thing that I'm talking about. Now, you can use this to print out strategies. So if you printed out this graphic, okay, and you cut out that square and you folded it based on the directions on the bottom and what I was just showing you, when you now have that fortune teller that you can open vertically and horizontally, you can now have them using those strategies. So on the outside, they might first pick the cow, the hamster, the dragon, the duck, whatever, and then you spell that out. And then they pick the number. And then behind that number is a coping strategy. So maybe you open it and that one says count to 10. And that's the strategy they use, right? Now, you can customize your own fortune teller using examples like this, like the squishy bowl or Play-Doh or noise canceling headphones or those bubble poppy things or a visual water tube or the trampoline, etc. Whatever works for your child, you can put in those squares and then use that as the fortune teller. So again, it's kind of a distraction in that they're now doing something fun, right, with the fortune teller. And the fortune teller gets them to choose which coping strategy they use in that particular moment. So again, a combination of distraction skills and coping skills, but it's something that can be fun. A lot of the girls happen to like these kind of things, but a lot of the boys like them too. And again, depending, you don't have to put animals on the outside. You could put superheroes or sports or whatever it is your child's into, video game characters or whatever they like. So, additional coping skills for other kids who might be able to understand what can I control. This can be really helpful because teaching your child what's in their control and what's out of their control can be a really effective coping strategy, because in general, things that are out of our control tend to give us more anxiety and stress than the things that we have control over. So if you look at your circle of control, what things can you control? Right? I can control moving my body regularly. I can control my decisions. I can control how I control my feelings. I can control washing my hands. I can control my words. I can control my actions or how much I prepare or saying nice things about myself, etc. I can't control being sick. I can't control traffic. I can't control how other people treat me. I can't predict what will happen. I can't control statistics and facts, no matter how much people think they can. I can't control COVID. I can't control how somebody else might feel about a particular activity, item, issue, scenario, etc. Okay. So again, I'm going to focus on the things I can control because I can't control those things outside of my circle. So you can help your child fill in the circle of the things they can control And as things that are out of their control upset them, you can put those things outside the circle to remind them that even though that might be upsetting to you, you can't control that thing. All you can control is how you respond to that thing. So let's pick some coping strategies that we can use, and those are things we can control, or coping strategies. So let's focus on that, and let's use a coping strategy right now as an example. Social stories are great helps for teaching kids what to do when they're upset. They're great tools. They can teach your child what to do when they're overwhelmed, when they're upset, when they're angry, when they're frustrated, when they're bored, etc. So you can either make your own social story, or you can buy a pre-made social story. Again, you want to use the language and vocabulary that's familiar to your child. So, and use pictures, that visuals that represent, again, what your child is going to understand. So as an example, when I'm frustrated, I can do something about it. I will choose to, and there are some examples of the coping skills that this person can choose. I can look at my book, I can decide what choice might help me, and I can close my eyes, I could take 5 deep breaths, etc. So again, you can see like there are page numbers on the bottom. If you cut these out, put them in order, again, it could be like it's a story, it's a social story. So when I'm frustrated, I look in my book and I decide what choice might help me feel better, right? And then you go through each page, and that tells your child how they can handle feeling upset, feeling angry, feeling frustrated, feeling bored, feeling whatever it is that you're working on, and what they should do in response. Those coping skills you've been practicing together and demonstrating. Now, some coping skills, you have to take into account some sensory considerations. So I have this awesome, these awesome materials, and it's called the Self-Regulation Card Deck. Now, what this card deck is it has a variety of different cards. Each card has a different color border to it. Things that have a red border are related to visual stimuli. Things that have a yellow or an orange yellowish border are related to tactile stimuli, things you can feel. Things that have a green border are related to auditory stimuli, things you can hear. Things that are with a teal border are olfactory or related to things you can smell. Things that have a purple border are vestibular, so things that involve movement of your body through space. And things with a blue border are oral, so things that have to do with your mouth and taste. And things with the brown border are proprioceptive, which again has to do with balance. So depending on what issue your child is having, if they're having an issue with olfactory senses, so they're overwhelmed by smells in their environment, you can go to the teal cards, and it'll give you a variety of things that your child could do when they're overwhelmed by smells. So as an example, if you look at the example on the screen there under smell, with the card all the way to the right of the screen, it says smell lotions. So that's a suggestion if you're having a hard time with the olfactory, with the smells going on in your environment. One card suggests you smell lotions. Now, when would you smell lotions? You would smell them when you're feeling tired, when you're having trouble focusing, when you want to feel happy or safe. And it gives you a couple of blank boxes that you can write things in that are specific to your child. How do you use smelling lotions? You ask your grown-up for some different scented lotions to choose from. Help your grown-up pick out some in a store. You might find a lotion that makes you feel happy or safe. Keep a small bottle of lotion in your coat pocket or your backpack to use whenever you need a pick-me-up. Right below your favorite scents of lotions. And then there's a little space that they could write the lotions that they like the best. And it also shows them where they can use it. You can use it at home, you could use it at school, you could use it at the store, you could use it in the car, etc. If your child was having difficulty with their vestibular sense, so they were having some movement-based issues in the moment, You could pick one of the purple cards, and maybe you pick the spin around card. So it tells you that you could spin around when you're rubbing your eyes, when you can't get comfortable, when you're constantly rocking or rolling your body. How to use it. You, with the help of your grown-up, find a safe and clear area, spin your body round and round, change directions. You can spin fast and you can spin slow. Right below a safe place you can spin around, or they could tell it to their adult and the adult can write it down for them. And again, places you can spin: home, the school, the apartment building, etc. So there are a variety of different, and again, it's called the self-regulation card deck. And it's really great. And it's not just one suggestion. There are like a dozen different cards in each category. So again, it'll give you some suggestions of things that you can practice with your child if they are having some sensory issues or overwhelmed in sensory ways, or need some regulation with sensory regulation. You can buy the self-regulation card deck, and it could give you a lot of examples of different things that you can do with your child to help them calm down, to help them with whatever they need help with in that moment, depending on what sensory issue they're having and what they need to regulate. Now, here are some considerations to take into consideration. A child with ASD might react differently to the same situation from one day to the next. A trigger that sets off a meltdown on Tuesday might be entirely ignored on Thursday. And in the same way, a child might respond differently to the same stimuli in different environments. For example, a crowded mall might be too much for your child, but a crowded movie theater might be okay, particularly if it's playing a movie that they really, really want to see. So just kind of keep that in mind in terms of coping skills, and when you're looking at why your child might behave differently from one situation to the next, or why they might need different coping skills to deal with the similar situations. Like, this is the same thing that happened yesterday. And yesterday he loved jumping on the trampoline. Today he doesn't want anything to do with the trampoline. So try something different. And as I always say, don't give up. Remember, teach your child how to use coping skills while they are calm. See which coping strategies work best for your child under different conditions. Remember to model the behavior you want to see from your child. If you want them to use their coping skills, they must see you using your coping skills as well. Do what I say, not as I do, does not work with kids on the spectrum. It can be challenging to teach your child to use coping skills. And if you're having difficulty implementing the strategies that we've discussed here, please consult with your BCBA or one of us. So let's talk a little bit about our program, our Champions for Our Children's program. This is how you get more access to us, to strategies like these. See all the resources we have for coping skills. This is a drop in the bucket. This is this much of the coping strategies that I have available, but I could have done this for 12 hours and still not touched on all of the coping skills strategies that I've used, or programs that I have, or materials that I have for all of my different students. This is just a sample. So ways that you can get access to more and more of these strategies, or if you try some of these strategies and they don't work for you, what do you do then, right? If you just come to this workshop and then you never kind of see us again, if these strategies don't work for you, you're kind of at a loss, you're alone, right? We want you to join our program so that you have constant access to us, so that we can teach you how to get your child from where they are to where you want them to be, so that you can do the same thing that you saw Michelle do with her own child, with Juliana. You saw how she started to have skills and develop language, and then she lost all of those skills. And she was extremely frustrated, and it was extremely hard for Juliana and extremely hard for Michelle and her husband and the whole family. But through ABA and through access to professionals and a mindset shift, she was able to do what she needed to do and advocate for her child and get the right services and practice those strategies so she could learn how to do them when the therapists weren't there with her. And now Juliana is that child you saw at the end of that video, where she's having conversations and commenting on things and has a personality, and it's just amazing. So we want you to be able to do the same thing. Just like Michelle said, we want you guys to look yourselves in the mirror at the end of every day and say, I did 100% of what I could do for my child today. I did 100% of what I could do to make my child have a better life and for my family to have a better life. And one of those things that you can do, one of the things that we can do to help you get there, is to join our masterclass. When you join our program, you get personalized strategies for exactly where your baby is at. You get a potty trained child. We have 100% success rate with that. You will start to reconnect to your child because communication will finally be in place. We're going to get to the root level of your child's problem behaviors and treat the root, not just the symptom. When life happens and things get off track, we'll help you get back on track. If there's a regression, we'll tell you how to handle it so it doesn't happen again. We're going to learn from trial and error rather than quitting on our kids, because the only true failure is quitting. We're going to teach you how to build that champion mindset so you no longer have to worry about autism every minute of every day. Just imagine that for a minute. That will get you your independence back too. So with our Champions for Our Children's Masterclass, this is what you get when you join. You get potty training, communication strategies, you get strategies to stop problem behaviors, social skills, the picky eater protocol, mindset training for you. You get strategies on how to stop eloping, and we build out more and more and more every month. You will get lifetime access to this self-study vault of courses. You could do it in 30 days, or you could take your time, because you have lifetime access to all of these programs. This collection of programs is truly what makes us the Harvard of autism. So when you join, you get lifetime access to the self-study vault. You get 3 to 4 live group coaching calls where you learn from the experts. You get Michelle, who's the autism mom and the life coach, and you will come to call on her to craft out a personalized plan for your baby. You get BCBAs just like me, and we do presentations just like this workshop all the time, to give you guys the strategies you need to get your child the skills that they need to progress to where they have to be. And here we are. You get a mindset coach to help keep your mindset in a place where you stay determined to help your baby. Everyone gets their questions answered 100%. So you get lifetime access to the self-study vault, 3 to 4 weekly live group coaching calls from the experts. You get monthly calls from our specialists. We have a registered dietitian who is also an autism mom. Greer is amazing. We have speech language pathologists who are also autism mom. Jessica. Stephanie we have a feeding specialist. She's amazing. Our occupational therapist, incredible. Everyone gets their questions answered. So regardless of what issue your child is having, you will get monthly access to our specialists. So you get lifetime access to the vault, 3 to 4 live group coaching calls, monthly calls with our specialists, our private Facebook community. You never have to feel alone again. You post any questions that you need. We check that daily, or you can email Michelle directly in between calls. So, like I said, we do these weekly coaching calls. So I might do a presentation on Thursday, and then you guys want to try it. Try all the strategies that we talked about. So Friday, you're doing it. Saturday, you try it, and all of a sudden something different happens, and you're not exactly sure how to handle it. You're not 1,000% sure what I would have said to do. You don't want to practice it wrong, but you don't want to lose your momentum, and the next call isn't for another week. What do? Well, you can either email Michelle. She'll get you in touch with us. We'll give you the answers you need. Or you post your question on the Facebook wall and we'll get right back to you. Sometimes the other parents might jump in, give you some suggestions on things that work for them too. It's an amazing community, and it's just for our members. So you get lifetime access to the vault, 3 to 4 group coaching calls live, monthly calls with our specialists, the private Facebook community. You can email in between calls, and you get an action back guarantee. This right here is worth everything. If after 90 days you do not get the results you came for, you either stay in the program until you do get those results, or you get your money back. No risk. There is no risk, right? If you don't get what you think you're going to get out of this program, you can either stay until you do, or you get your money back. That is no risk to you. And think about the rewards that you can potentially get for your child, for yourself, and for your family by signing up for this program. So you get lifetime access to the vault, 3 to 4 live group coaching calls, monthly specialist calls, a private Facebook community, emailing Michelle between calls, and the action back guarantee. That's got to be it, right? Like, that is so much. Nope. You get your first bonus, a private session with Risa. This is priceless in and of itself. Okay. So you get a 20-minute private session one-on-one with Risa. Priceless. So that's got to be it, right? We get our self-study vault, our 3 to 4 coaching calls, our monthly specialist calls, the private Facebook community. You can email between calls. You've got an action back guarantee, and you've got a private session with Risa. That's got to be it, right? Like, what more could you possibly ask for? Well, you get 5 months instead of 3. How do you like that? You don't even have to wait to say, like, well, it's 3 months and I'm not getting the results I want. No, you get 5 months for the price of 3, almost double what you would have gotten otherwise. 5 months, price of 3. That's 70 or more calls to change your life, to change the life of your child. So that's got to be it, right? We have the self-study vault, we've got the coaching calls, we've got the specialist calls, we've got the Facebook community, we've got access to email, we've got the action back guarantee, we've got a private session with Risa, we've got 5 months in the program for the price of 3. That's got to be it, right? What else could we possibly ask for? Well, $500 off the program. How about that? That is your third bonus, $500 off the program. So you need to email Michelle at michellebrodgers.com, okay? Because all of these bonuses go away at midnight. You'll still get the self-study vault and the 3 to 4 calls and the monthly coaching sessions and the Facebook community and the access to email and the action back guarantee. But the 20-minute session with Risa, the 5 months instead of 3, the 5 months for the price of 3, and $500 off the program, that's only available until midnight tonight. So if you are thinking about signing up for this program, do it by midnight tonight so that you get those 3 bonuses. All you have to do is go into the chat box and click that link. That will set you up, okay? Click the link or email Michelle and you will get, if you do it by midnight, you will get all 3 of those bonuses. Tonight only. Book that consultation call. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, just because Michelle's daughter did that, it's not going to work for my child. Juliana is different. That's called unicorn syndrome. When you think like that child is different than every other child, it's just not going to work for my child. Well, let's talk about that for a second. If you're thinking, Juliana is different than my child has severe autism. Well, let me tell you, you saw those videos at the beginning, Juliana was severe. I have nephew who's on the spectrum. He was severe when he was a little kid. He didn't speak till he was over 4. Sensory issues, behavior issues, speech issues. He was always in distress, didn't follow directions, didn't pick up on social cues. Today, oh my God, he has a girlfriend, he has a group of friends, he's attending college. We taught him how to drive last summer. He in high school was the lead in his high school plays and musicals. Like, he is amazing and happy and verbal and social. And if you met him, you wouldn't think autism. You might think a little quirky under some conditions, but if you didn't know, you wouldn't know. So it's not just Juliana. It's not just, oh, well, my child has severe autism. My nephew has severe autism, but he got the help he needed. He got it early. He got it consistently, and he got the right help. You might be thinking this works for other kids, but it's not going to work for mine. My child is broken, or I'm broken. There's nothing out there that's going to change the trajectory for my child. This unicorn syndrome, it's a state of self-preservation. You're telling yourself, if I stay here, I never put myself out there to have these hopes and dreams for my baby. And when that doesn't happen, I can't be hurt. I can't be disappointed. I can't be devastated, because subconsciously you're saying, like, if I try and fail, I just can't take it. I won't get through it. I won't survive it. Okay. For joining me tonight, you will get access to those 3 bonuses. Like I said, we can help you. Don't let those fears, don't talk yourself out of something that could really change your life. Click the link in the chat or email michelle@michellebrodgers.com. Book your consultation call. You will not regret it. Now, don't take it from me. Listen to what some of our other families have to say about our program and what it has done for them and their families.
So I guess I wanted to start asking you, what were your biggest struggles prior to joining the program?
You know, I was going around and looking for organizations. I was looking for help and reading online about this program and this organization and this agency, and nothing clicked. And then I read about yours and it resonated. It just felt right.
I got to a point where I was really overwhelmed, and I knew there was more I could do for Joseph, and I knew there was more room for him to learn. So I started looking up online, and I'm like, I really need somebody who's been through, or somebody who knows more than I do, who's walked through this, that can be my coach or help me, figure things out.
I joined because I have a 3-year-old autistic son. So by about 22 months, no words left, very unengaged, no eye contact, doesn't answer to his name.
There's no access to any kind of services over here in Ireland. So it was just really clutching at straws and Googling stuff and trying to find something. And also quite defeated by my now 3-year-old just having absolutely what I felt zero relationship and ability to communicate. Even he never pointed, never waved, never called me mum, just nothing really, even without speech.
Before participating we weren't making as much progress. It was slow progress. Also, I feel like I was struggling a lot with the grief of the diagnosis and not having a lot of space to think about it and process it with other parents.
We have any local ABA. We have one facility in town that does speech and occupational therapy, and everything seemed to be waitlisted or just not available. And I just felt like, how do I get him the help when I felt like at that point in time, I felt like my hands were tied.
Because he's quite a listening boy. When you say to him, do this, he'll do that. But it just won't go. And that really got me worried. It got my husband worried and thinking, okay, we need to speak to PD so that they can, tell us if this is going to really affect his health and all that.
I think my biggest struggle was understanding their potential, and just believing and knowing and seeing through practicing what you offer to think about, because they're all different, all children are different, that anything is really possible. And if you believe that, it can and will occur, like it did with my grandkids. Connor, older, was having meltdowns. The younger one was nonverbal and just having, the older one was having sleep issues. The younger one was having feeding issues and language, the verbal issues, communication issues. The older one, the meltdowns have almost disappeared, and we know how to anticipate them coming and offset it immediately.
I was just hoping I can, get some help, because basically before I found this program, I actually didn't know, I was kind of relying on just the speech therapist and teachers and stuff. I would ask them a bunch of questions, I would research stuff, I seriously had, because this is all so new to me, I had no idea. So I was just hoping, for some help.
I came in just feeling very helpless, very confused, alone, just, not knowing what to do to help my baby. That was the biggest thing. Just wanting him to move forward instead of being stagnant. Speech was the big thing because he wasn't talking. It was a lot of just silence. Nothing.
And I saw the ad for Michelle and her group and said, well, why not? What else? What can I do now that I haven't already done? What would be the harm? What can I lose?
On one end, I'm hearing, okay, she's, artistic and, you qualify for a lot of services. And when I go and try to inquire about, no, we can't service her. And that's where I was at.
I have twins, 6-year-old twins, that are potty training seem to be impossible. I have 2 older kids, not on the spectrum, never had a problem with potty training, homeschooling, all of the stuff that I do. And then with these guys, everything's just like a big old curveball, because none of the traditional things work the same. I couldn't find a way to really just focus in on getting the potty training done.
I have been really trying to potty train Alex for a really long time.
Well, my mother-in-law is actually the super skeptic when it comes to everything. And then she signed up for the program first, and she was just like, you have to watch these videos. She's amazing. She is very turned off by a lot of doctors and therapists and things. But she was like, Michelle, she's just a real person.
So this program encouraged me to, we can do it. So we did. So we started 3 days potty train with him in March. Seeing your story and stuff like that, I went back and forth, and I'm like, okay, she's going to start ABA therapy on this day. And I told him that was my number 1 goal. First thing to accomplish was to get her potty trained.
As everyone would be. I was a little skeptical because of how many times I have tried with Alexander. This is now my 5th time of attempting potty training with him.
Before I joined this program, my thinking pattern was so bad.
At the time that we joined, we were working on the potty training, and that had been a struggle. I had been at it for months, and
I just needed support from someone to basically keep me going, because I would start and then, you know, work for a couple of days and then something would happen and I'd stop and then start all over again. So I kind of needed someone behind me to not only give me the tricks and tools and all of that, but also someone to tell me like, keep going, it's coming, and fine tuning whatever errors that I was doing.
My son was about 1 year, 2 months, and I knew something was off and different. My child was staring in the mirror, flapping his hands, not responding to his name, just completely in his inner world and just not developmentally getting anywhere. And I was scared shitless.
When we met her, our son was like in year 2 of potty training. He's 4 years old. He's autistic, and he had been hospitalized a couple of times because of potty training related issues. And when we met Michelle, he had just been hospitalized again over Christmas, and I was just at my wits.
So he has been tracking on the spectrum for some time. And really I was at a point, he's pre-emerging verbal. I don't say nonverbal anymore because of Michelle and her team. And he was, I half potty trained, you know, I got him to potty train P, going number 1, but he still would not poop in the toilet. He would sit on the toilet and he wasn't adverse to the toilet, but he would choose just to poop in his underwear. How do I get him talking? How do I get him pooping in the potty?
Yeah, so I was looking for more to really help my son. He's 4, nonverbal, and was struggling with communication, social behaviors, and also potty training. He was somehow there, but I wanted something solid.
Gina was like 6.5, I think, when we joined at 7. And she had a lot of temper tantrums. She was taking her clothes off in the night time, and then every little thing I had, I would talk to Michelle.
I had a then 3-year-old daughter who was recently diagnosed with autism this past January. And one of the things I was really working on prior to that was her potty training. I felt like no matter what I tried, she would resist it and still want to, hide in a corner and poop, or wanted to wait until the diaper is on to poop in it. And I didn't know what else to do. I felt like I tried all that I could.
I was intrigued, so I signed up for it because doing it on my own was frustrating, and it was challenging. I could not get him to do the potty training traditional way because he's my grandson. So the traditional way, it was easy peasy with my 2 kids, but this was a little challenging for me. So I sought for help. So that's why I reached out to your program.
So before joining, my daughter Monroe, she's 3.5. We got her autism diagnosis this year, January 2023, right before her 3rd birthday. So we got the autism diagnosis, and that was basically it. We were having early intervention, just OT, come to the house twice a week, and then we were doing virtual speech once a week. So that wasn't really benefiting her just with the speech. So we felt like we needed something more. Monroe wasn't potty trained, and she's pre-verbal, so the communication was a huge struggle.
Biggest struggle was potty training and communicate. Well, we had all 3, but potty training, communication, and some behaviors.
And my biggest struggle was potty training. We had tried multiple times to try and get Sam potty trained, but no success. And so that was my biggest reason for joining the program.
All right, so now, I guess, where are you now? You and your child, now that you've joined the program.
They're doing really, really well. Both are potty trained. I'd say 95% of the time, doing really, really well with that. They're both, I think their ABA program here is wonderful. We got very lucky with that.
Okay, so where I am now is where I kind of know that I'm in charge, and not just in charge, but I also it's not just where I need Joseph to be, but I know that if I'm better, Joseph as a better mom, and I make better decisions.
To break it down to him, I had to have somebody break it down to me. Like, they tell me you're going to start so small with him, but it was almost like somebody had to start so small with me and tell me, hey, this is what you do, and kind of give me the stepping stones to do that. So, and that's made a world of difference. He'll tell us now.
You helped me formulate the confidence in myself to realize Henrik was ready and to really go for it.
You know, my son's 5. Since he was diagnosed just before he turned 3, and you kind of feel like you're left out on your own in the cold, and you want to do every single thing you can for your kids, and I'm telling you, this is it.
The changes in him in less than 2 months, I think I've been like 6 weeks, are miraculous. The behaviors are decreased. The stimming has decreased. The listening to directions has increased. The language has increased. He went from single words to using sentences. And this is in 6 weeks. I can't imagine what 6 months will bring.
He's doing so much better. He's more eye contact for sure. We're working on talking, on saying some words. He's using a little button and doing more things than he was doing before.
So I guess I wanted to start asking you, what were your biggest struggles?
I love that video, but it is running a little bit long. And I did want to be able to provide a little bit of time for question and answer. So I hope you don't mind, but I just wanted to just stop. We're going to have to edit that video a little bit, so it's just not quite as long. But I hope you guys all got some idea of the struggles that a lot of our families faced and how they feel about joining our program and being part of our Champions family. So let me just check here first in the chat box. I want to see if there is anything here. Just a lot of good evenings and hello. One question here. My son has been screaming randomly, distressed at preschool. Almost 3, nonverbal, gets his outpatient therapy twice a week. He was good the first 4 weeks of school, but now he just screams a shrieky scream at everyone at school has been raising their concerns. Can you help me on, give me tips on how to help him stop the screaming? We're giving him a weighted vest, but that doesn't work. So my suggestion to you, SN Saba, would be the first thing is they have to do a functional behavior assessment on him at school so they know why he's screaming. What's the function of the screaming? Is he screaming because he wants to get out of something or avoid something? Is he screaming because a lot of people give him attention when he's screaming and he doesn't know how to ask for attention? Is he screaming because he wants an item or activity and doesn't know how to ask for it? Or is he screaming because he's kind of bored and he's entertaining himself a bit? Or is he screaming because he's like hurt or has some kind of medical thing going on? So once they find out exactly why he's doing the screaming, then we know exactly what to do about it. We can come up with a plan to fix that. So my first recommendation would be they need to do a functional assessment at school and collect some data, and then we can figure out what the function is. So my recommendation would be click the link in the chat box, book your consultation call, and that way we can help walk you through the process like over time as we investigate this and collect some data and figure some things out. We can come up with a plan. Let's see, I think that was all of the questions in the chat box. Let me just take a quick look at the Q&A box here. Some I can do, but what if he's nonverbal in terms of the strategies I gave? Again, you want to use strategies that are at your child's level. They don't have to be verbal to be able to take breaths in or out. They don't necessarily have to be verbal to, they don't have to be verbal to do progressive muscle relaxation or squeezing their hands or pushing together or pulling apart. What you might need to teach first is either direction following and or motor imitation, because if you can get your child to follow single step directions and you can get them to imitate motor movements, then you can model what you want them to do and your child can imitate that, and then over time you can build it and build it and build it so that they can use it as a coping skill. Let's see. Some questions on potty training and eating habits. Those are a little bit more complicated questions. Please sign up for our program so that I can give you those strategies. I have some presentations and workshops specifically on eating and on nonverbal child to verbal child. So we do presentations on that all the time as part of our master class. So please, please, please click that link and be part of our program so that we can give you those strategies and those suggestions. Now, it is after 8 o'clock, and typically I would do a hard stop at 8 o'clock. But since the presentation was a little bit long tonight, I do want to give a couple of opportunities for some questions. So let me take a look here at our attendees, our participants. If anybody does have a question that they would like to ask me, I can do a couple of quick questions before we wrap for the evening. So if you would like to raise your hand, we would be able to connect you with me, and I can answer a couple of questions live in person. If you don't have any questions based on tonight's presentation or any comments or anything going on that you want to ask me about, that's absolutely fine. There are some weeks that we just don't have a lot of actual questions, but we want to try and get to a few tonight if we can. So I do see, oh, I thought I saw a hand up. If anybody does want to raise their hand, I'd be more than happy to be able to answer those questions. Otherwise, let me let you know when I will be speaking again. I will be doing my next workshop will be on Thursday, December 7th. And the topic is bullying and kids with autism. So I really hope that you guys will join me for the bullying presentation. And in our parent group, I will be doing a presentation on making the holidays more enjoyable for a child on the spectrum and their family. There are a lot of issues that could come up in a holiday gathering, from having people over your house that aren't over typically, going to visit at somebody else's house that your child may not be as familiar going to. There might be strange or different foods and smells that your child might need to deal with on a sensory level. There could be behaviors as a result of this. They could be overwhelmed by the noise or the crowd or the additional demands in terms of language and communication and behavior, etc. So I will be doing a workshop for our group presentation on that as well. It does look like we have one hand up. I'm going to answer this one question before I wrap for the night. Saba, if you would like to unmute your mic, I would be more than happy to answer your question. What can I do for you, Saba? Hi, Saba. All you need to do is unmute your mic, and I would be more than happy to answer your question.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi. I'm sorry. I just have been really concerned about my son, who is 3, as I gave a brief information earlier with the screaming.
Mm-hmm.
I have tried other coping strategies too, besides the weighted vest. Like, an occupational therapist had asked me to do some pressure massages on him before school, or regulate him by helping him swing or jump about for 5 to 10 minutes before he goes to school, and we have been doing that. However, it's like as soon as he enters his class, I know that my son is scared of kids, but the kids don't even come near him, and they are usually busy doing their own thing. Like around 9 o'clock when the school starts, they are
And what
amidst an
happens
activity.
after he starts screaming at school? What happens?
It's just random shrieking. He is not crying or anything. It's
No,
just
but what do they
tricky.
do? Like, did they call you? Did they bring him home? Did they give him a break? Did they let him like leave the room? Like, what do they do when he starts shrieking?
They said at first they ask him to shush, like, say, stay calm, Zed, no screaming. But then when he does not stop, they take him out on walks.
That's
And
exactly why he's doing it. So they are reinforcing his behavior. If he does not want to be in that classroom, if he is afraid of the kids and he does not want to be there, he is shrieking because he's learning, when I shriek, they take me out of this classroom. And then I don't have to be in the classroom with those kids that I don't want to be in there. I get one-on-one attention. I'm going for a walk and I don't have to do any work. So if they continue to
yes,
take
like they
him
take him
out,
on walks and then they take him back to the class and then the screaming starts again. But the
right.
last 3 days they have been like calling me just in an hour and a half and asking me to come pick him up because he's
Oh,
like
that's
screaming
the
a lot.
worst thing to do. Do not go pick him up. If you pick him up, he will never stop shrieking. So this is definitely an escape and avoidance behavior. He has learned, they have taught him that when you shriek, we will remove you from the classroom. So he's learning, when I shriek, I get to leave the classroom. And then what happens? They take him for his walk. They bring him back into the classroom. What does he do? He screams. And what do? They take him back out of the classroom. So that's him asking to leave. He's just asking by screaming. So they're teaching him that when I scream, I get to leave the classroom. Now, if they call you and they say, listen, he's being too disruptive and we need you to come pick him up, and you pick him up and bring him home, what he is then going to learn is, when I scream, I get to go home. I don't have to be at school at all. The screaming will definitely continue, so he gets to go home. Then what'll happen is he'll start screaming before you have to take him to school to get you to not take him to school.
So what do I do and how do I help him without
So
causing
they
trouble
have
to the
to
teachers and
not,
the classroom?
they cannot take him out of the classroom when he screams. They have to continue. If the other kids can't learn, they have to take the other kids out of the classroom, bring them somewhere else so that they could do something else with them. Keep him in the classroom. The best thing to do is keep him in the classroom with the other kids and just ignore it and let them get through it. And the first thing it's going to be hard, because the first thing that'll do is the screaming will increase, because he's used to, if I scream enough, I can get out. So maybe I'm just not screaming enough. Let me scream more so they do take me out. But if they don't remove him from the classroom and he learns that the screaming isn't going to get me out, they can teach him an appropriate way to get out instead. So what they need to do is give him like a break card, something that says break, something that shows him it could be a picture of him taking a walk in the hallway. It could be a picture of the classroom door. It could be a picture of the word break, anything. When he starts screaming, they need to tell it. Now, first, if he starts to do anything before screaming, like if he starts to get agitated or starts to get upset before the screaming starts, they need to hand over hand prompt him to touch that break card or hand them that break card. But even if he just touches it, then they say, oh, you want a break? Let's go for a walk, and take him out of the classroom. So they could still take him out, but it's not because he's screaming, it's because he asked for it appropriately. If he screams, they do not take him out of the classroom. But the second he's quiet, even for a second, even if it's just to catch his breath in the middle of two screams, that's where they have to prompt him to touch that break card. And then they say, oh, you're quiet and you want a break? Let's go take a walk. And then they can take him for a walk. If they call you to pick him up, tell them no. Say, I'm sorry, I don't want to pick him up. I don't want to reinforce that. He'll start screaming just to come home. But you can give them those suggestions about using the break card, letting him go for a walk when he's not screaming before he starts screaming. And if he does start screaming, the second either the screaming goes down a little or stops, that's where they could prompt him to ask for a break or a walk or the door, and then they could take him for as many walks as he wants during the day if he's asking appropriately. And then over time, once he's asking to go for a walk instead of screaming to go for a walk, then we could get him to work for a walk. But initially, we just have to teach him there's another way. If you want to leave the classroom, screaming will no longer work for you. But if you do want to leave the classroom, this card is the key to getting out of here. Okay.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And please come back and let me know how it's going. If you can, sign up for our class so we could talk about this more like on my weekly calls as well. I only do monthly workshops, but we do like weekly calls as part of the class. So we can give you more assistance that way as well. So I hope you book a call for your consultation, and hopefully you can join the program and we can help you get through this issue with him. I've dealt with this behavior so many times before, and it's
I know.
definitely,
My only scare is that I don't want the school to kick him out of the program,
they can't
because
kick him out. That's illegal. They can't kick him out because he has behavioral needs that are related to his disability. That's not legal. But you can advocate for them giving him support. And again, if that takes like a CSE meeting or anything like that, if you're a part of our program, I can help you with those meetings. Like I've attended thousands of CSE meetings to help parents advocate because you have rights, your child has rights. And just because he's being disruptive, if they haven't done the right things to help him, it's illegal for them to kick him out or move him into a more restrictive setting. There are certain things they have to do legally before they're even allowed to suggest moving him. But if you don't know what those things are, you can't advocate for that. We know what those things are, so we can definitely help you with that.
okay, thank you.
It is
I
my
did book
pleasure.
for a free consultation call, and regarding the program, I will decide and join.
Yeah, book the consultation call, speak to them and see if this is something you think is going to be doable for you, then, join the program and we can keep talking. And if not, come back to the next workshop and let me know how things are going.
Okay, thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for your attention this evening. Unfortunately, I do have to do a hard stop now, but thank you so much. I hope to see you guys on on December 7th on Thursday for my bullying workshop. I hope that will be helpful information for you guys as well. And please book your consultation call and see if this is a program that will work for you, that you can manage, and it will change your lives. It truly will. Thank you guys so much for your attention. Have a